Welcome to Searching for Truth and Treasure in Alabama with Alabama historian, videographer, and speaker Jim Phillips. Jim has spent the last 40 years exploring and finding amazing artifacts on lesser-known sites in the state. He's here with us to discuss the how and where you can legally explore old, privately owned sites and find those amazing treasures from the state's past. Plus, he's going to tell you a story or two about hard-to-believe events he's encountered as he's toured the state. So let's get into it. Here's Jim Phillips.
All right, welcome in, everybody. We hope y'all are having a wonderful day, night, morning, evening, whatever it is. Be sure to check out JimPhillipsAlabama.com. Follow Jim, see what he's doing, give him some money, help him go hunt stuff. Jim, how you doing today, man?
You know I came in here mad.
Angry Angel, here he is again.
I had that bag of my rare coins, including the 2 Egyptian coins that were stolen in 1909 in front of Khufu's pyramid, the Great Pyramid.
Yep.
And I made a joke about it. Well, it's true. I put it on eBay, and I typed in there, you buy this and you can wait for the mummy to come. One moonlit night standing in your window, coming to get those coins back, because that's what mummies do. They come for revenge when you steal stuff from Egypt. I was leaving. So where's my bag? Oh, it's in my satchel where I keep my coffee. So
right.
There it is. Didn't touch the satchel. Came back. They're gone.
Uh-oh.
Now, I've been stressed out. It's not impossible that I took them out, but that's what I wanted them in was the satchel.
Yeah.
So why would I
you
take
always
them
have
out?
them there.
Because that's where I wanted them.
Yeah.
They're missing. If we do another podcast, those things were not taken out of that house by me. So if they're not in that house, yep.
A mummy got them?
Something got them. It ain't going to be the mummy. Because I was telling you, Captain William Howard Andrews, autographed books with notations from 1875. He's a Union general. He fought at Gettysburg, was wounded. He fought at Sharpsburg. He fought at all these places. He was legendary. Went out and fought in the Apache Indian Wars and died from arthritis from all that horse riding. I had his personal books signed by him. First printing, Sherman's Memoirs. Some Southern boys want that for toilet paper, you know. But anyway, they were in the top drawer. They just disappeared. I sent my mother's note we found after she passed away in 1994. God bless her. She was so sweet. Helped so many people. She said, be in faith with your God, at peace with yourself, and one with nature. That was it.
That's good stuff there.
And I found that a month after she passed away in the house out there, and I put that in a special place, never touched it, and it just disappeared. So my friend Mike says he puts things on the mantle. He lives in this home, the only pioneer home left between, well, one of 2 between Tuscaloosa and Huntsville on the old Huntsville Road. He just said, I just accept it. If I put things on the mantle, I don't get them. They're gone. My cats aren't getting them.
Yeah.
He just said to me, I put it up there, it's gone. So his home was built about 1832 or something like that. So
wow.
But he's never.
Well, I guess that's the best thing to do.
We've
just
never
accept it and move
seen
on.
a spirit. It's just things go. And I told you this is going to be October. Remember, we did the radio thing with the radio
back
station
several years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we found out the station had damage. It was broadcasting at 5 watts or kilowatt. It was going 300 feet across the street, and that was it. And I wondered why we weren't getting.
Hey, and we still had like 8 people listen to it.
Yes, I had 8 people, right. There's a couple of dead possums on the side of the road in front of the radio station.
That's right.
But that was fascinating, and we told a story about what went on in the house in 2005. And I told you, I'm embarrassed to tell people, well, there he goes again. And I said, well, my podcast.
So listen, in the description of this podcast, it talks about searching for truth and treasures and the strange things that
maybe we need to change it. We need to change it. You had the movie Cowboys and Aliens.
Yeah.
We need to call my podcast Angels and Aliens because it's a hodgepodge, because it's like a mixture of this stuff. And I look crazy talking about it, but these things really happen. The guy down at the University of Alabama yesterday, and I donate model planes and ships to the University of Alabama Office of Student Veteran Affairs. And I was telling him, oh, Jim, I believe you. I just see you, know you, and I know you're telling the truth. It's just this stuff's happening. And I flew that out in front of him. I said, listen, to one podcast, I got out of line. I talked about the Navy pilots that see the UFOs, and I said they're just quick going, hey, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, dude. And I said, so childish. I said, I'm going to get my butt beat by some Navy pilots. But I said, you vouch for
You're going to find one of those little red lasers.
He didn't appreciate it, but he said it didn't make him mad because he's Navy. He's from Pensacola, I think, and I said, but I may need you to vouch for me when the Navy pilots come to beat my butt. Listen, I wanted to call this one.
So wait, back to your coins. So you have no idea where they are.
I have no idea.
You're pretty sure the mummy didn't do it, but somebody got
We
something.
come in
got
next
them.
week to do a podcast. Those coins were not taken out of the house by me. They were in this black bag right here. I saw them. I went downstairs to make some more coffee, came back up to get the bag. I put my coffee in the bag. The coins are gone. They're gone.
Well, so if anybody's been in contact with Jim over the last 10 days and you see a little bag of gold coins, we know you're going to be honest.
Well, yeah, my bridge, the two front teeth, the temporary bridge,
Yeah.
I was going to Montgomery to speak the other day, and I set them on the table and turned around to get polygrip. It's the temporary bridge.
Right.
And I broke a tooth, and they're gone. But I looked at Luna, and Luna's a big Rottweiler. She eats anything. But
Was she smiling back at you with your own teeth?
would a spirit need a bridge? That's the question.
I don't know.
I don't know, right?
Who knows?
All right. Childhood treasures. There'll be a little humor in this, and then there's going to be something a little serious because it's a special memory. Now, I told you I was going to ask you, what's the most unusual play you ever saw in a baseball game?
I've seen the triple play. I don't remember exactly how it laid out,
That's
but
as common as peanuts
I know,
in
but
a bag
that's-
of planters.
I mean, triple play, that's about it. I mean, I'm sure there's others, but I'm not big on remembering details.
My good friend Johnny was my catcher when we played what was called National League and the Little League. Then you had the American League, was 12 years old. We were 11-year-olds. Johnny was special. He had a twin sister named Joanne.
Now, when you say Johnny was special, what do you mean by that?
You'll find out.
Okay.
You'll find out. He's a little boy, but he's an adult. He's 5. He's 11. He's 25. He's all this in one bundle.
Okay, I got you.
With wisdom.
I got you.
So he's my catcher. He's got a twin sister, Joanne. I'm pretty sure it was Joanne and not Joan. And then he's got an older sister, and I won't go into last names. He's got parents that are deaf. They're not deaf mutes. They can't hear. Is that deaf mute when you can't hear?
Yeah, deaf means you can't hear.
They're
Mute,
deaf, I
mute
know.
means you don't speak.
Yeah, well, no, they spoke, and they spoke like this because they just had trouble hearing,
Sure,
so they learned
sure.
to talk that way. So the love of this family was awesome. We'd go to the swimming pool, and he always hugged them. He and Joanne, his twin sister, would go. The older sister did her thing elsewhere. And they would, love you, Mom, love you, Dad. And they go, like, love you, Johnny, because they could speak, and it was pretty well. But you could tell that they did it, had learned by deaf people, spoke beautiful English. So they would hug them. And Johnny and Joanne hugged the parents. They hugged them when they came to pick them up, and there I am. I never saw such love between parents and children. There was this bond, and it was beautiful, and that helped influence my life. So there we are, Little League, 11 years old. And there we are in the American League, and guess who's my catcher again? Johnny.
Yeah.
Now, back then, all you little leaguers, and they still do, want to act like they're major leaguers.
Oh, yeah.
They do crazy stuff like the major leaguers do it. I played Little League with this one guy, and he made all F's in school, but he was brilliant. He'd get on first base, and he'd know, this is Little League. They can't throw you out.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next pitch is still second. And they'd go over to second baseman or shortstop, say, need to run to third.
Yep.
And they'd throw it, he's still home. He'd get on base just immediately, next pitch, still second, still third. I
Yeah.
mean, he just did it all the time. He's like, kids can't throw a baseball. But they wanted to make like they could, so you ran
They're gonna
back.
try.
Yeah, you run back to the base so they don't throw you out. Why? Why do you do that? They can't throw you out. He knew that. So anyway, there we are with the Red Sox. Braves is 11-year-old, Red Sox is 12-year-olds. I hit more home runs in batting practice. I pulled the pitches down the third base line over the wall. Loved it. Mm-hmm. I was really murdered on the fastball. I struck out on every curveball I ever thrown.
I was the same. I couldn't hit a
I
curveball.
made fun in Pony League of Henry. He had his father taught he and his brother
Yeah.
baseball, and he taught them well. Henry threw the slowest curveball you ever saw. You could
I
count
hate
the
those.
seams. Yeah, it comes in. You could eat a hamburger in a large Coke before it got to home plate. So I'm laughing, making fun of him in the dugout. I said, "Oh man, look at that old pitch, man! I'm gonna just go to town on it." Got up there, three straight pitches, curveballs. I swung, I won within 2 feet of the pitch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, there I am batting. There's my anyway again. I'll wear that out. Johnny, as a catcher, would go, time out, to go out have a conference with the pitcher. Being major league.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Johnny would walk out to the mound, and he would get there to him, and he'd whisper, do you like the cherry snow cones better than the grape snow cones? I go, yeah. I says, do you put ketchup or mustard on your hot dog? I said, I do both. He said, well, I like them that way too. What do you like on your hamburgers? That was the conversation.
Yeah.
He'd go out, walk back, and get back on his knees, catching.
Just trying to get his mind off everything.
Just some chit chat. What he's doing is just making fun of the Major League walk to talk routine because we're in Little League. He said, we're kids. So I'm batting, and the bases are loaded. Not same game. He did that walk all the time, but here we are in the game. I never could hit a home run. This is the truth. So I hit this straight fastball, which is slow in Little League, and out she goes toward left field, and it comes down, and you hear it like an atomic bomb go off. Boom! It hits the top of the plywood wall.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes straight up. Now, is it going to come inside the park?
Oh, yeah.
And be caught? Or at least muffed,
right?
But it ain't a home run, or is it going to go over the wall? I promise you, I said, oh, Lord, please let it. It's like, please. And I said, I'm just a kid. I said, I'm just a kid. Please let it. And it went over the wall.
Oh.
Grand slam home run.
Nice.
But I got humbled. I didn't get to see the beauty of it sail over the wall.
Right.
I got to see it go boom where I had to pray it over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm rounding third. I'm last, right?
Mm-hmm.
Johnny's in front of me. He batted in front of me. He's so happy I'm his best friend. He jumps up and down hugging me, and I cross home plate first. And he's celebrating, dancing, and singing. He crosses last. You're out.
Yep.
The umpire, I didn't know the umpire comes over. We're in the dugout laughing and hugging. And the umpire comes over, and the coach comes in and says, like, you idiots. He's talking to the umpire. Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't know. The umpire says, no, he's out. Johnny goes to the screen fence and tells the umpire, look, we're just little kids trying to have fun. It's not life or death. And the umpire goes, Something got his tongue.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
He said, grand slam home run. We're just little kids having fun. Forget the stupid rule.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So there's the adult.
That's pretty. That's pretty smart.
And we were so close and such love in that family. And then, unfortunately, a year later, I stood in the cemetery in one of those funerals with the lightning coming down in the pouring rain. And Johnny and his sister and his mother were killed in a head-on collision.
Wow.
And I lost them that way. So anyway, it's you go through things like, but they molded my life, and they molded it for the better.
Well, on that note.
Yeah, on that note, I'm talking to Mike last night. We'll try to come off of it, but God bless those folks. Did you take broadcasting in college?
Oh, yeah,
I had
did.
a radio show when I was at the University of Alabama, and I drove over to Columbus, Mississippi. I had a graveyard shift, and it was like from midnight to 8 in the morning on the weekend. And the old Air Force guy who was at the air base over there traveled the nation, the Air Force, and moving them around. And he says, now listen, let me teach you some things. You're going to have in any town a girl call you in the wee hours, and she's going to talk to you like this. Mm-hmm. I want you to talk to her. And she's going to want to meet you and come up to the station. You don't do that.
Right.
Never do that. One of two things is going on. It says either she's gorgeous and her husband will kill you, or she's ugly as sin. I'm just quoting the guy, right? Sounds kind of crude, but he said that. Anyway, yep. Okay, I was ready for it. 2:00, Weird Wanda calls. Yeah, Weird Wanda. Yeah, she had a name, Weird Wanda, and she, hi, and she wants you. Her song was Frank Sinatra, I Did It My Way. I never did have her come up. It actually happened. Weird Wanda, he told me she'd call. She started calling and all. So that's why I got a radio broadcast. And I said, I'll let you know how you turn the power down at night for people? You got a radio station. It's like we're like 10,000 watts during the day, and it reaches out 150 miles. And then at night, by Federal Communications Law, FCC, you turn it down to like 500 watts. And it only reaches out about 30 miles. Well, I'm broadcasting one night. It's been dark for an hour, and I get this phone call. I'm in Mississippi, Columbus. This phone call comes in from New Orleans. Says,
oh, wow.
Where the hell are you? I never heard you before.
Everybody else had turned down your airwaves
I'm
ago.
broadcasting all over the South, and I run to turn the power down. I'd go climb. We had a thermometer. It wasn't for the radio show, but I'd open the window to do a weather forecast and climb up the vines. I'd say, time for a weather forecast. I actually did this. I was called the chimney weather forecast. They'd hear me raise the window. I can't tell you some of the things I did and the thing I said over a live mic when little Timmy called in with the Little League scores, and I wondered where he went, and I called him a dirty name and realized the switch was on. I waited for those hundreds of phone calls, fire, but none ever came. We're going to talk about old ghost towns or dead towns in Alabama.
So towns that were there and they're not there now.
Well, there's...
Or they might be there,
if
but
you
they're not
look
the
up
same.
on the internet, this is the treasures part. The other
Here we
part
go.
was searching for truth. And I'm still searching for truth in a lot of... The only one thing I know is true, that was the beauty in Johnny's family. But the rest of it, I'm still trying to figure out. Even my experiences with the radio station. You key in ghost towns in Alabama, and it gives you state parks. I mean, you got Fort Blakely.
Yeah.
Blakely was a city, a town across from Mobile Bay, in like when Alabama Territory was going on, 1817, 1819. And Fort Blakely was there. Oh, it was bigger than Mobile. Then Mobile took over like in the late 1820s. And then Blakely becomes a ghost town. But they have Fort Blakely at the same site in the Civil War. And for you Civil War historians, 16,000 Union soldiers attacked about 1/4 that many Confederates that were manning Fort Blakely. That's the last large ground battle in the Civil War, major ground battle between forces. The last was in Alabama at Fort Blakely. Guess what? The Confederacy had already signed the surrender.
Oh, wow.
Like 2 or 4 hours earlier. I think I'm correct in that. But it was on the same day.
Wow.
It was the same day of the surrender. And, of course, you don't have iPhones.
Yeah. Horse couldn't run that fast.
You don't know that. So there they are down there. And I think like 75 Confederates were killed and about 2 or 3 or 4 times as many Union soldiers.
Wow.
More people die when you're charging a reinforced fortress. The people doing the charging get killed more as a rule than those behind it.
Well, that makes sense.
1/4 of the 16,000, I believe I'm accurate with this, Union soldiers is right in there, were black. They're black, okay? At the end of the Civil War, there are more black soldiers in the Union Army than there are soldiers. All soldiers.
Really?
In the Confederate Army. Kind of interesting fact on that. Now, we talk about ghost towns. I mentioned old Memphis, Alabama. And you can't see the book with what's called the Weeping Enigma. Let me tell a story when we go to a ghost town. This is in Stuart Harris. He may not be alive now. I hadn't spoken to him in years. Stuart Harris has a book called Dead Towns of Alabama. He did this in the 1970s. And he toured the state with his daughters that were young. My daughter told me this week, get this, right out of the blue, I've been waiting for this. I want to spend a day this weekend, you and I exploring like we did when I was little. Oh, you made my life hearing that. She's 25.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to that. Anyway,
Yeah.
Stuart went out and explored these old places. He's got a section on Indian towns. You can forget that. But he's got these old communities. And Memphis, Alabama, did I ever mention? See, I do these.
Never heard of Memphis,
Well,
Alabama.
I'm talking about this at Montgomery 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And I that's why I say that I talk, because I'm talking about so many things at different places.
Oh, yeah.
Communities, libraries. And I don't make notes. Okay, I spoke on this there. I spoke
Right.
on that there. That's why I stumble into the same thing. Old Memphis, Alabama's got over 5,000 people at the beginning of the Civil War.
So where?
Tombigbee River,
Okay.
which comes out starting in Columbus, Mississippi, where
Gotcha.
old Jim had his nighttime talk radio show. Wouldn't talk,
Right.
wanted to talk. Anyway, steamboats come down, and they go down to Mobile, down to Tombigbee. Now, we ain't going to talk about the Tennessee River. That's North Alabama. It's got steamboats that come out of Tennessee. Then they go back up and hit the Mississippi River. Long route. We're going to talk about Alabama's world port, Mobile. So you got the Tombigbee coming out of Mississippi, and it comes down. Got all these steamboat stops, and you got that awful sinking of the Eliza Battle that caught on fire. I think I talked about that. And then you got the Alabama River that comes down east of Montgomery and flows down to Mobile. Memphis, Alabama has over 5,000 people. It's just inside Mississippi on the Tombigbee River. This is before the Civil War. After the Civil War, it becomes a ghost town. It just becomes just a farming community. It still is, but there are some wealthy people living there. One, William Coleman, I believe is his name, dies in 1894, and they're wealthy. His widow, Mrs. Coleman, I think her name's Elizabeth, I may be wrong on that, She sends off to Italy and has her likeness carved in Italian marble. This really needs to be a video to see this. It's in a book about old Alabama cemeteries. It's on the cover.
Oh, wow.
In from Italy, after he dies, comes her image, life-size, wearing a long, like grieving widow's gown, holding a laurel leaf with her head bent in reverence. She places that out there over his grave, looking over his body, right?
Right.
You got to see the picture, her head bowed, holding this wreath. Then she finds out he's had a girlfriend on the side all the time. And she goes out there, and I show people. I say, I bend over in reverence. The table is the gravesite. And I said, she turns that statue around where the butt's looking out over the body. She actually did that.
Did she really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And the book says, obviously to show her irritation at his infidelity. Says there's another theory, and the book says more logical than the first that I just told you. She's pissed. It ain't. It says, well, the wagons come up down here, and they only get to see the back of the statue. And it's so beautiful, it costs so much, I want them to admire the statue. So she turns it around where the butt is facing her husband's body, and it ain't going to fly.
No.
You go out to Woodline, Elmwood Cemetery.
Elmwood Cemetery,
There's thousands of graves out there with Jesus statues, saints, angels looking over the bodies, protecting them. There's parking lots behind half those thousands of statues. Ain't one person flipped the statue around yet so they can admire the statue. Doesn't work that way.
That's right.
So Old Memphis,
funny.
I've never visited it. You've got a podcast with a motorcycle group. That ought to be good. And motorcycle people, a motorcycle club, I'm sure the people with your podcast know this, would ride Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
They had podcasts or YouTubes of them riding in and exploring places. They went to Old Memphis.
Oh, cool.
And an old timer sat there and told them about the history of the place. I've never been there. But it's on the river. And, of course, the U.S. Corps of Engineers has built dams in Alabama. And some of these places where the actual village or town was on the riverbanks has been covered with water. I've not been there. I can't tell you anything more about it. But we go into these other places that Old Cahaba was actually the second capital of Alabama. The first one, the legislature met in 1819 when they formed the Constitution of Alabama. They met in Huntsville, like a wood shop or something. And then they went down to Old Cahaba, which is right below Selma on the Alabama River. And the Old Cahaba town would flood. So that's Alabama's capital from 1819 up to about 1826. And then it goes to Tuscaloosa for 20 years. Then it goes to Montgomery. You don't go to Old Cahaba with a metal detector. There's some old bricks down there and stuff. It's a state park.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I spoke to the park director once when I said two evil words to her. I said metal detector. She went ballistic. Then she apologized, and she's a sweet lady. She says, actually, we've had metal detectors come in here and volunteer. Work with us, finding things and exploring things. So there are old towns out there, little warriors in Stuart Harris's book, Dead Towns of Alabama. That's up in Blount County, where I was born. I've been up there. Where that community was, there was a white boarded house across the street from the 1930s. There was an old barn falling in across the street, and the lady in the White House, my little girl then was only about 7 or 8, loved us. She said this was Little Warrior. They had a post office there. They had like a general store, a post office, horseshoe shop. That's it. That's the community. You're not looking at cities, and I want people to think about this. When you look at these places, talk about gold, the old riverboat crossing, the creek crossing, or this old town back in the 1800s, you're going to have a shopping center built on it now. The highway goes over it.
Right.
There's a spring, an 1800 spring. I can't believe I've forgotten the name of it. Near Valhermoso Spring, up below Huntsville. And they got a historical plaque there. Guess where the spring is? They built a highway over it. All this bubbling up, beautiful natural water, they covered it up with a highway. So that's a place where people would have dropped coins. I told you I went to a spring up in northeast Alabama, not far from Birmingham, and Elmer Harris, I told him that I was hunting on state property, or Alabama Power property. And he said, just don't cut the trees.
Right.
And I have found a few old coins there, Indian heads. I didn't say that, but I haven't really hunted the place. But there's a situation where you get permission, and you said, did I get it in writing? And I said, no,
Right.
because I'm bad about that. But I can say, Elmer Harris, hey, he's your top dog, gave me permission. Find where there's old springs. Find out who owns the property. In the old days, there's a lot of traffic coming down there. And if it's in a creek, people may have washed clothes.
Mm-hmm.
If you know where people went to wash clothes and do stuff like that, they're going to be dropping a lot of coins. Let me look at notes here. Smut Eye, Alabama.
Smut Eye.
Yeah, well, my friend Jerry in Mobile, and that's Soda Empire. Google it. It says, just a brief glimpse, click it. He lists whiskey bottles by towns in Alabama and old soda bottles. Smut Eye was named Smut Eye because in the 1800s, and I think this is, it's going back in the 1800s, I'm not sure how far back, men there would work, and they worked in the, they did some kind of melting of ore or something, but they got soot, what they call it, smut, soot in their eyes.
Yep.
And they hadn't given the community a name, so they just decided to call it Smut Eye.
Smut Eye.
So I got a name. There's a soda bottle that says Smut Eye on it.
Really?
And I don't know how, what's rare. I don't know if any people own it, but that's one you look for. Jerry was looking for a bottle from Dixie, Alabama. You know what it is now? There's no stop sign, I don't think, or maybe one stop sign. If it was big enough to have a bottling plant, about 1905, 1912, that means there were a few hundred people there. That was a thriving community. There's nothing there now. Forest ranger or something like that down there told me it's like one little church now.
What part of Alabama? Like where?
That's down near Bruton, Alabama.
Okay.
Down there near Bruton, Alabama. You're getting toward the Florida line. So that's a classic case.
Dixie, Alabama.
There's Baltimore, Alabama. Baltimore, Alabama is...
Do they talk weird down there?
Yeah, no. Well, let me tell you, they built this community, and there's a family, well, not a family, there's different names on it. They go back 1820s to the 1840s, and it stops. They vacated that town by 1855. I know it was a ghost town, and they probably had 300 people living there. No soda plant there back then.
Right.
But in the Huntsville newspaper, I've read the ad in history books. It said, soon to be the biggest metropolis or the newest metropolis in the new state of Alabama. This is 1820s. And you can mine coal up there. That's getting into the coal field. So what you do, you mine coal and you can tear it out of the hillsides and all and put it on the flatboats. The flatboats go down and hit the Black Warrior River. Then they go all the way down and hit the Alabama River, and they go into Mobile for world
distribution.
Yeah, distribution. I can't think of the word distribution. Like I said the other day, I'm tired. So that UFO's happened, man. I can't sleep more than 4.5 hours since that happened last year. Having a hard time sleeping. My dreams are normal, though. No, I'm not having dinner with little green men. Oh, let me throw this in. The Close Encounters of the Third Kind. My daughter hasn't seen it yet. She's going to watch it, and I want to freak her out. She knows about the tone.
Uh-huh.
All right, the tone.
Wait. Before we go to the UFO, finish Baltimore, Alabama.
Well, it's just nothing there anymore.
So that was it.
Well, let me go back to the river. This is why it was a ghost town.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Put the coal on the flatboats, but it's got to go down to the rapids. They got
Yeah.
tired of watching the flatboats flip upside down and spill all the
Dumping
coal.
all the coal.
They said, we can't navigate this.
I
So how
gotcha.
you going to get, you got trains up there. You got to go by flatboat. So when they saw we cannot turn this into commercial coal town, it went ghost town. Never been to it. A lady up there whose mother was very old died, said, I'm invited. Every time I called her, she said, it's flooded down there. And now she won't return phone calls if she's alive. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get to it. So what was I just talking about there?
You were about to talk about the UFO again with Close Encounter.
Oh, yeah. Well, the daughter's never seen it. And I told her, I say things, you got to understand just what I'm talking about because they're true. But how are they true? The little creatures that come out the end of the movie,
Right.
she hasn't seen the movie. I'm going to say, I have actually talked to 2 of those. I said, God, Ted's really sick. He's really sick. I know a psychiatrist in one visit ran out of his office crying. But Ted's really sick. That's true. I've actually talked to 2 of those little aliens. You know what? Because they were Jim's children in spacesuits. I worked with Jim. He had two little boys.
Yep.
They recruited tiny little thin boys down there. They had school at the Brooklyn Air Force Base for weeks while they filmed these scenes.
Yep.
Folks, the UFO landing scenes and Close Encounters was filmed at Brooklyn Air Force Base in Mobile. All that landing.
Really?
Yeah, yes.
Never knew that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All that stuff from Wyoming.
Yep.
That's supposed to be at Devil's Tower. All that's at Mobile.
Huh, cool.
Yeah. So Jim's two children got recruited and they put them in little space suits. Mike, my friend, said he had one of those and somebody stole it or lost it.
Yeah.
But I've actually talked to two of the little aliens. Of course, they were Jim's children before they were in a space suit. You look for old bricks. I'm reading some notes here. You can go along creeks and stuff. Again, you get your butt shot off. I'm trying to clean up my act a little bit. No ifs, no taking God's name in vain. It's none of that stuff, but I'm trying to cut back on the dams and hells, which I do for emphasis. I told you when we called, the Catholic diocese called while I was sitting here, it's, oh my Lord.
Yes.
I made remarks about what I did as a naughty little Catholic boy, and they don't like it.
Right.
But it was Catholic Charities, and the guy says, well, maybe this was intended. You've been scammed when it gave our number. I told him, I'm trying to get food and clothes to the needy where I see the needy. Don't just drop it off where it can be stolen. He told me about Sister in Central Alabama. She tried to call me, and I got her on the phone. And she says, God bless you, Jim. I'm going down to do 2 talks near her. Talks, and one day I'm loading up the Jeep Cherokee. And if I don't get zapped by a UFO, I'll make it down there. And I'm going to bring tons of clothes and stuff. Just one of several trips I plan on making down there. So that worked out well. So you never know how things are going to work out. I found my source of getting things in the needy's hands. The book, again, is Dead Towns of Alabama. I don't know if Stuart Harris is still alive. He's a little older than me, and I'm old, but
you're not that old.
Probably can find it on eBay, Dead Towns of Alabama. Let me tell you, too, there's these books. I've got one that says Alabama Ghost Towns. And I bought it. You're not going to believe what's in there. Do you consider a Moody, Alabama a ghost town?
Oh, Lord, no.
With five supermarkets and a population of 9,000 people. What it is east of there about a mile, there's an old church and an old cemetery. There was a pioneer village there at one time. So that had been an old town, but you're not going to find the remains of that. St. Stephen's was the territorial county seat of Alabama. Not county seat, state capital. When it wasn't a state, territorial capital. 1817, Mississippi becomes the state of Mississippi. It's no longer the territory of Mississippi. Alabama is the territory of Alabama from 1817 to 1819. Then all the politicians get together up in Huntsville in December, I think it's December 16th, right in there, of 1819. Alabama is formed as a state, and we've gone over those capitals. Watching the political stuff that's going on and all the hooting and hollering at each other and insults. In 1835, Henry Clay, senator from Kentucky, came up with an idea. Our legislators and senators and national government were fighting and arguing back in those days. Kentucky made bourbon. And it was...
And they still do.
They still do. Oh, yeah. And Dr. James Crow created Old Crow. I don't know if my friend Jack the Crow down on Dolphin Island enjoyed it, but Old Crow was made in 1835. That same year, Henry Clay, I don't know if it was Old Crow, because it had the label on it. I'm sure they're probably making some other bourbons. He takes a barrel of Kentucky bourbon to Washington, D.C., and they meet at the Wilshire Hotel, and they have what's called the Bourbon Barrel of Compromise.
Oh, yeah.
They all get a little soused, and they all start loving each other.
Oh, yeah.
And they're backslapping, and they just start reaching an agreement.
Yeah.
And bipartisan support for all kinds of things, because that bourbon made them smile.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Might not be a bad idea these days.
Do you know the history of bourbons?
A little bit.
Well, 1835, Dr. James Crow comes from England and Scotland, where they have Scotch. And he comes up with scientific procedure of testing pH, making bourbon consistent. And he makes Old Crow. And at the end of the Civil War, the Union soldiers, one reason they wanted to go easy on the South was that they make that Old Crow bourbon, man.
They
They
want to
loved it.
destroy
No,
that.
really, they said, I mean, we like it, and,
Yeah.
and that was a feeling of camaraderie.
Yeah.
Those old boys down there, they're making Old Crow bourbon. Jim Beam was made in 1795. That's one of the oldest bourbons. So you can get an old map. I started to bring one in here and unfurl it, but it's what you call wallpaper map.
Yeah.
It's about 8 feet tall and 5 feet wide, and I'd be unfurling that, and you hear crinkle, crinkle, and trying to read it. And it's an early one. It's like 1835. But it's got the names of towns on there that have changed. You've got down, I'm just trying to think of some of the towns. That Talladega may have a different name back then. And there's a town down in South Alabama that was a big town back then, and the names changed. You look and you say, I've never heard of Noxahutchee or something like that. It was an Indian name.
Yeah.
And now it'll be like Williamstown or something. I'm making up the names, but
Yeah.
I'm saying now it's a
Completely
town with
changed, yeah.
3,000 people, but it's on a map in 1836, but it had a different name. And back
Right.
then it had like 200 or 300 people. And let me tell you, you'll have towns down there, and it's the only town in that county, and the population back then is only between 200 and 300 people, and that's a town.
Yeah.
You're not talking about
Yeah.
metropolises. So I can't stress enough getting permission. Let's see if there's something I wanted to touch on here. I'm missing my coins, right?
Still missing the
In there is the Roman coin of Galerius II, Roman emperor. Galerius II was the last Roman emperor to persecute Christians before Constantine becomes emperor. Constantine has what's the Nicene Council, if you know church history, in 313. And he has a vision, and he leads the Roman legionnaires in the battle under the sign of a cross. He says, no more pagan Roman gods. We're going Christian because of the crosses. And that's how the Roman Empire becomes Christian, and it spreads in the Roman area, the Roman Empire area. Now, but before then, Galerius is slaughtering Christians left and right. He's persecuting them as Roman emperor. And we're looking at like 307 BC, right in there, 302, 307. Galerius comes down with a disease. I probably shouldn't talk about it. It's called Fournier's gangrene.
No.
Men get it. You don't want to know where they get it.
Yeah. I think you've talked about this once before.
Did I really?
I think
Oh,
so.
yeah. Well, it's more.
Yeah, because that's bringing back some.
Yeah, well, yeah. You'll have
you have to go back and listen to an earlier podcast.
Right. I
on
talked
that.
about
Yeah.
it's so foul that the doctors
Right.
that come to physicians and
Yeah.
they get sick
Yeah.
from the filth, and it kills them.
Yeah,
The doctors
yeah.
get sick. But what I didn't mention was, I didn't know this. I was reading up on this some more. Here he is slaughtering all the Christians, and then he put out an official declaration asking the Christians to pray for him. Right? Pray for me. I was in pain and suffering.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
The Cleopatra, the first coin, which is missing as of this morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look for that mummy.
There's a picture of it on our website.
See
Though.
if that mummy's down at the bus station, right?
Yep.
It's got my coins trying to get out of town. I don't know where this went. I'm going to be really scared if we don't find this because...
I'm sure it'll turn up somewhere.
Well, when I was in college, I used to find my prescription sunglasses in the refrigerator.
Yeah, well,
I haven't done that since college days, so I'm not worried about it. There are 7 Cleopatras, folks. Cleopatra the First is the coin I got, which was one of the coins given to me that was stolen in front of Khufu's pyramid, the Great Pyramid, and she ruled from 193 to 176. And I'm just giving you a little history on the coins because we have put those on the site.
Yeah, you
Have
talked
you put
about
the meteorite on the site yet?
Yep.
You have.
That's all that's on there. Yeah, y'all go check out JimPhillipsAlabama.com.
All right.
That's with 2 L's, and you can see a bunch of the stuff that he's talking about.
Okay, I'll fine tune some talks where we're specific in the near future. I did get an email from Garrett, their marketing guy, and he says, I'm sorry it's taking me so long to get back to you. He says, we're interested in looking into this, maybe giving you some support with the podcast.
Maybe they can give you that top secret metal detector that they haven't released to the public yet.
Well,
You know, the one that just points you in the right direction. And
I've got that. I've got the...
No, I mean the one that, like,
Oh,
when
no,
you
you don't
drive
want
up,
that.
when you drive up, it says, Jim, go right over there.
No.
To that tree.
There was an article in one of the Treasure magazines that says the worst thing you want as a metal detector is there's no mystery, no searching. You wouldn't want something, and it can't be created, but you wouldn't want something you hold over the ground says, oh, it's a so-and-so year, so-and-so date, and it's right here. Why do that?
Oh, I would love that.
Oh, no, well, you might partake getting money. I should love it.
You should love
Oh,
it.
and let's don't get out of here without doing a plug, right?
That's right. That's right.
So you don't want a detector that does that. But I said the GTI 2500, which is one of their family of detectors, is the only one, and the little brother, the 1500, if it's still is made, does it, that will tell you the size and the depth of the object and what it thinks it is.
Yeah.
And I told you, I went out down there when they excavated Greensboro Avenue on Tuscaloosa, which goes back to the 1820s, and I stepped out there, and then within just a matter of seconds, boom, 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 it says silver, and it says like $50, and up comes the 1856 silver half.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as definitive as you can get.
Yeah,
But I
that's
do
pretty
not
good.
have some of their other detectors, and they've
Right.
got one that I really, really want, and there are a couple of others that are new I want to be using. So I'm trying to work something out, and we can talk about performance of those, and maybe get out and do a video sometime.
Yeah.
I did not make it down to the plantation out of Tuscaloosa.
Look, I've talked to my family and my daughter's boyfriend, and he's all about digging
All right,
some
well,
treasure.
we'll
so.
go out there and we'll show Garrett metal detector and operation, some stuff like that. We'll do that later on. I did, leaving my talk in Montgomery last week. Oh, it's this week. It was Tuesday. And the guy calls me up that runs that plantation that belongs to the Historical Society. I thought he was going to kick me out, reject the idea of this exploring because of the rain, but it
Yeah.
stopped raining.
Yeah.
He calls me, says, you want to meet me? I said, yeah, let me try to. So I've got exclusive permission with him overseeing it to go in the back of this home that was built in the 1840s. It was a mansion. There's woods in the back in the cemetery, and you don't hunt cemeteries.
Yeah.
But I think I can find where they throw away bottles of metal detect. I got lost trying to find them.
Yeah.
And it was only like an hour of light, so we called it up. But next week, I'm going back to Montgomery for another talk.
Awesome.
I will get with him, and maybe we can document some amazing finds on that. Remember, people, I've got an agreement with the Historical Society, and I think he's their head honcho. I hunt. I'm going to bring them 2 1800s bottles for their mantle and their mansion. I've got permission to keep.
Now, do things disappear off their mantle?
It does off of Mike's, according to him. Hey, we're used to it. I mean, I just quit trying to figure things out. I want these coins, though. Right? I want them back. So my website is JimPhillipsAlabama.com.
2 L's in Phillips.
Right, and my podcasts pop up with Searching for Truth in Alabama.com, but at my website you can see where you can donate.
Yeah.
And I really want people to try to do that because I really need some help spending money on this Jeep and traveling around doing this research and bringing back reports. And again, I always say if you make some extra money off of anything I said, try to kick in 10% to help a charity or something. And you can donate to my podcast because that's a charity. Need some help on it.
Absolutely.
And I say we did a shout out to Taylor Swift to give some money, right?
Yeah.
We did a shout
I'm
out.
sure the money started rolling
Yeah,
in.
Nancy Sinatra, because
Right.
I think maybe the celebrities, nobody else is doing anything. Maybe
Right.
we'll do something. So I'll think another celebrity for another podcast. We'll do a shout out.
All right, guys. Everybody, thank you for listening. Go back and listen to some other podcasts. Check out Jim's website, and you can listen to these on YouTube as well. There's no video, but you can at least listen to it. We hope to see you on the next one. Jim, be good. Try not to be so angry next time, all right?
I'm having a good time.
All right, see ya.
Gold, 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 they just gotta have that gold. Gold, gold, they'll do.
Thanks for listening to another episode. If you have questions for Jim Phillips or would like more information on his speaking availability, visit his website at jimphillipsalabama.com.